The 40th A meteor is made of alien heavy metals. Megadensity from 40th A causes the EM field to jumble. Jumble allows magnetic levitation with special motors and AG pods. Robotic cabs ride the wind. 40th preferred transportation, free-flying robot cabs. Called with alt Wi-Fi or a Fortian bracelet, arrives within a minute, guaranteed. Convertible top speed 200 miles per hour, unlocked 700 miles per hour. Expandable cargo raft can carry large loads. Customizable fold-up comfy seats. Four-way stop in the sky. How do you even have traffic when you're flying? Mr. Diamond couldn't believe the amount of traffic and stopping.
Do you want me to unlock it, Dad?
Juliana asked. Mr. Diamond shrugged and nodded. He didn't know what that meant exactly. Juliana opened a panel and fiddled with the instruments until it clicked loudly. Mr. Diamond thought she broke it, and the bills popped into his head again. Mr. Diamond paid for beautiful funerals for all his fallen friends, and always would. He shook his head to forget all that. Juliana pulled out a small piece of the panel and unfolded it into a remote control. Hortense went to help her hit the various buttons. Ground effects lighting, rainbow laser show on the canopy, holographic displays of various things within sight, telescopic scopes to see far past the canyons of mines and skyhugger buildings.
Okay, Mom, okay. That is all the buttons. That is for the luggage compartment, and this is the speed control. Everybody ready?
Wait, don't take it to the... Diamond started, but Juliana cranked the tiny lever. They accelerated in seconds to almost 700 miles per hour, swooping up over all the other traffic and barely missing multiple other unlocked speeders. As Diamond screamed, he finished his sentence. Limit! He was ill for a moment. Mr. Diamond's senses were far more acute than a normal person. He could sense people and objects around himself, even at great speeds, and knew that they had come within inches of a crash. Hortense laughed with delight at the roller coaster feeling. She was young at heart. The cab arrived at their destination in a few minutes rather than the half hour predicted. Juliana smiled at her dad, Mr. Diamond, and he nodded and smiled, but his face was pale.
Sorry, Dad, I thought it would autopilot.
The Diamond group, Mr. Diamond, Hortense, his wife, Juliana, his daughter, and the Spanish heroes Esponto and Esclanto, stepped onto the wide footpaths of the largest Caribbean metropolis. A limo bot was holding a sign for them, as expected, with a long stretch limo. But Juliana grabbed Mr. Diamond's hand and led them all to a limo skateboard instead. Limo skateboard. Skate in style. Meanwhile, at Vine Sweet Vine at the palace, a Palacio, Flea was steamed. She had not been allowed to fight in Mysteria. Then the queen had the gall to ban her from the parade. She was so furious. The palace's courtyard was slowly covered with piles of vines and flowers as Flea propelled herself on a plant bridge. Flea's plants grew based on her mood. It is always on, and she had limited control. She is a very impulsive young lady. On Marquesa, the giant stood tall and absorbed the warm sunlight. The giant knew he had snapped many years ago, but while he was lost in time, he had unwittingly gone into mental hibernation. He giggled in fits, unbidden and unaffected. After a few hours, his mind returned in bits. He gulped the air, trying to remember more. His throat was like gravel.
What? They did it. I need a newspaper. Can't really be 100 yet.
But it was 100 years to the day. The robot state-built underground cage drill had released him. He felt so weak. He was thirsty. His memories were all gone. He could not remember the names of anything or anyone. But he saw the faces of those who had condemned him. He remembered the injustice. He was innocent. No longer. The giant burned with hatred. Mr. Diamond's mind wandered. He wanted to take a nap. But limo skateboarding had been quite refreshing. They jumped off and checked into their hotel room. Mr. Diamond did not wait at all. He dropped off the bags, splashed water on his face, and announced he would go now to the palace. Everyone was on board, so after everyone had a minute to refresh, they marched out and down the street on their mission. The group marched directly into the entry reception room at the far west end of the mansion. Mr. Diamond showed the receptionist the letter he had received from the Queen and requested the earliest meeting with the Queen or King. According to the letter, the Queen had already indicated she would meet with him. She just didn't know the time yet. The receptionist looked at him like he was crazy and looked over his crew. Then she handed out some gum, picked up the phone, and started making calls. She made many calls, all very short, and all talking so low that none of them could hear what was said. They could only hear her gum smacking. They got bored of this routine and sat down around the waiting room. Eventually they got so bored they went outside and wandered the gardens, which were spectacular. Mr. Diamond harassed the receptionist every so often, and then went to the restroom to practice his speech. Flea was very angry. The Queen did not let her go to the parade. Flea was in the attic. She heard Mr. Diamond from below. Mr. Diamond was practicing his speech to the Queen.
That's a bad speech! Oh!
Flea was not impressed. Blah, blah. Wait, who is that? Where are you? Mr. Diamond continued. Your Majesty, it is an honor to finally meet you in person. I know you're a busy woman, so I will be brief.
Oh!
We have all been hurt by this recent crisis.
Oh!
Are you talking to me?
Yes! Why would I tell you?
Is this real?
I'm tired of you. Bye!
Wait, what? Wait!
P.S. I think the Queen will help. Ah!
Hello!
That guy was so annoying.
Flea kept building Vine Sweet Vine, but she could still hear the sounds of the parade.
Why wouldn't the Queen let me be in the parade? Ah!
Flea smashed another hole in the royal palace. This time, by sheer coincidence, she broke into King Enrique's secret relics hoard.
What is this place?
Speaking of King Enrique, where was he? After driving around long enough that they would miss their parts, all the while lecturing them on their responsibilities, he safely left the children in the care of the palace staff. He marched to his residences, triumphant. He had played all his best cards. Enrique laughed when he thought of how Persa would react to his most recent death threat. Ha 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 ha! He laughed as he walked through the glass garden. On Marquesa, a titanic struggle was unfolding. The world had completely forgotten the giant, amongst many important facts, and he could not remember much either.
What is my name?
The giant had power of will that rarely appeared in nature. He resisted with every iota of his being, pushing toward the blank space that was his name. Finally, after hours of continuous struggle, he collapsed in exhaustion. His body was impenetrable, but the island jumped when he hit the ground.
Pow!
Snoring. Mr. Diamond had rushed out into the hall and looked all over for the voice, but never saw Flea, and couldn't guess who was talking. He put it out of his mind and tried to focus on his meeting with the Queen, but Flea's words stuck.
The Queen wouldn't listen to such a weak argument. Weak argument. Weak argument.
He didn't have long to brood, as the Queen's messenger delivered him a note.
Sincerest apologies, honored warrior, but we have received death threats today and must remain hidden. Yours truly, Queen Persa, XOXO.
Mr. Diamond was blown back by the strong perfume. Then the message burst into flames. Mr. Diamond walked out and down Royal Lane toward the reception building where his wife and daughter waited. He came in to find them watching the Centennial Parade on Lou's Tube. Juliana looked at Mr. Diamond.
Hey, Dad, check it out. The Queen bolted from the parade. The Prince and Princess were the main acts and they are a no-show. Best laid plans, right?
Yeah, exactly. She said she can't meet with me either, Mr. Diamond lamented.
Oh, what about the King?
Juliana asked. Mr. Diamond's head and shoulders hung low. He never answered me. He's right there, Esponto said, pointing. Mr. Diamond instantly regained his spirits. Oh, the game is afoot! He disappeared out the door, and Juliana watched him charge up to King Enrique, flailing his arms. Then they both had an excited conversation, both waving their arms. At first, Juliana thought the king would throw them all out, but incredibly, they embraced, and Enrique led Mr. Diamond to his wing of the palace, arm over Diamond's shoulder like old friends. Juliana's and Hortense's jaws dropped. Esponto and Esclanto grinned, and they all hurried out to catch up.